Your TFSA, your tax-free savings account, has one word in its name that's quietly costing you money, and it's the word savings. Because the TFSA was never meant to be a savings account. It's a shelter for your investments, and you never pay tax on your investment growth as long as you use the TFSA correctly. By the end of this video, you'll know how much room you have in 2026, what actually belongs inside the TFSA, the one withdrawal mistake that triggers a penalty, and why the government can't touch this account even when it decides your benefits later in life. I'm Tony, a CPA and MBA with years of real client work behind me. I'm glad you're here. Here's the plan. The 2026 numbers, what to hold inside the account, how to never trip the penalty, and how your TFSA quietly protects your old age security down the road. Most people open the TFSA at a bank counter or on their banking app. They moved some money into it as their savings and have been adding more savings to it. You think you're already benefiting by saving in your TFSA. If that was all there was to a TFSA, then there really isn't anything you're getting. Because when you do that, the only thing protected from tax is the meager savings account interest the bank chooses to pay you. And we all know how much that is. It's not your fault. The account was built to look like a savings account, and it does its job a little too well. The bank isn't trying to lie to you, but a misunderstanding that quietly earns them money is one they're in no hurry to fix. A TFSA left in cash is the most polite way to be underpaid. Think of the TFSA as a room you own. Whatever you keep in that room can grow, and the taxman never walks in to take it out. Cash can sit in the room, so can a GIC, a guaranteed investment certificate. So can an index fund, an ETF or exchange traded fund, and a stock. The room doesn't care what you keep inside it, and the growth comes out tax-free either way. So leaving only cash in a tax-free room is like renting a garage and parking a bicycle in it. You're paying for the space and barely using it. If you want one count money idea every Sunday, I write the Sunday Money Letter. It's free, about 500 words, 1 point, a steady voice in your corner. Go to cpamoneymentor.com/moneyletter or click the link in the description. For 2026, the room is $7,000. And if you were 18 or older back in 2009 when the TFSA started and you've never put $1 in, your total room is $109,000. Here's how that stacks up year by year. It started at $5,000 a year back in 2009, and it's drifted up with inflation since. It only moves when inflation pushes it past the next $500 step. So it sits still for a few years at a time. There's one odd year, 2015, when it jumped to $10,000. Then it settled back down. Add every year together, right through this year's $7,000, and you land at $109,000 of TFSA room. Now, that $109,000 is the maximum. It's not everyone's number. So let's start with who's eligible. You need to be a resident of Canada, 18 or older, with a social insurance number. Your room starts building the year you turn 18 or 2009, whichever came later, even if you never opened an account. So a few things move your number. If you turned 18 after 2009, you've had fewer years, so your total is lower. If you've already put money in, subtract that. If you took money out in the past year, that room came back to you. And any years you spent as a non-resident of Canada don't count. Take a second and picture your own number. If you've been eligible since the start and never began, that's $109,000 of tax-free room waiting for you. You can check your exact figure in your CRA My account. That's the Canada Revenue Agency. Though the CRA number can run behind, so keep your own tally too. Here's the part that changes everything. Match the money to its job. Money you will need in a year or two. a car, a wedding, an emergency cushion can sit in the high interest savings option inside the TFSA. That's fine. That money isn't meant to grow. It's meant to be there for when you need it. But long-term money is where the tax-free wrapper earns its keep. The more it grows, the more tax it shoulders. That's where growth investments belong. Things like a broad index fund or an all-in-one ETF, and there are several. Let me put real numbers on it. Say you put in this year's $7,000 and leave it alone for 30 years. Left in cash at around 2%, it grows to about $12,700. Put it in a growth investment at an illustrative 6%, it's about $40,200. That gap, more than $27,000, is what cash quietly costs you. And every dollar of that growth comes out of the TFSA tax-free. Here's what that's worth. Hold the same investment in a regular taxable account, and the CRA taxes your gain when you sell. On that $40,200, your gain is about $33,000. In Canada, half of your capital gain is taxable, so around $16,500 of it counts as income. At an illustrative 30% tax rate, that's roughly $5,000 going to the CRA. I know, you could have avoided that. In the TFSA, that $5,000 stays yours. And that's the friendly version, because in a regular account, you'd also owe a little each year on any dividends along the way. And if you've ever wished someone would just look at your whole picture and tell you exactly where your money should go and in what order, that's what I do for people. You walk away with a clear plan built around your real life, so you stop second guessing and start knowing your money is working as hard as it can. And because I work with every client personally, I can only take on a handful of clients at a time. So if this is something you want, it's worth reaching out sooner rather than later. The link is in the description. Now, the trap I promised you. When you take money out of a TFSA, that room doesn't come back right away. It comes back of January 1st of the next year. So if you pull money out and put it back in the same year without fresh room, the CRA counts it as an overcontribution. And the penalty is 1% a month on the extra every month until you fix it. Let's say in June, you pulled $10,000 out of a maxed out TFSA to buy a used car. The sale falls through. So in September, you put the $10,000 back. You didn't gain a cent, but the CRA says a $10,000 overcontribution, and the penalty clock starts. Wait until January of the next year, and the same move is completely fine. And this is the opposite of an RRSP, a registered retirement savings plan, where money you withdraw is room you lose for good. The TFSA gives you the room back. It just makes you wait for the new year. Here's a quieter benefit that matters more the closer you get to retirement. A TFSA withdrawal isn't income, so the government doesn't count it when it decides your old age security, your guaranteed income supplement, or other income-tested benefits. Pull $40,000 out of your TFSA in retirement and it won't nudge your OAS by $1. Do the same from a RRSP or RIF, a registered retirement income fund, and every dollar counts as income and can start clawing back your benefits. One honest caveat. Some provincial disability supports still look at what's in your TFSA. So it isn't invisible everywhere, but for OAS and GIS, it is. Here's something worth knowing. People who've built real wealth aren't using some secret account you can't get. They're using the exact same TFSA you have. They just use it differently, and none of it is complicated. Let me give you 3 modes. First, they put their higher growth investments in here on purpose. Think about why. The TFSA is the only account in the country where growth is never taxed, not while it grows, not when you take it out, not ever. So the more something can grow, the more it belongs in the TFSA. A low interest savings balance in here barely uses the shelter. Your long-term growth in there is where it earns its keep. We planners have a name for this: asset location. And all it means is matching the right kind of investment to the right kind of account. Second, they treat it as a one-way door. Money goes in and stays in, quietly compounding for years. They're not raiding it for a vacation and topping it up later. They set an automatic contribution and let it run in the background. Let me show you why that patience is the whole game. $7,000 a year at a modest 6% for 30 years grows to about $550,000. Third, they use it to control their taxes later. In retirement, a TFSA withdrawal isn't income, as I mentioned earlier, so it doesn't touch your old age security and it doesn't push you into a higher tax bracket. That flexibility, being able to pull money out with zero tax consequences, is something wealthy people pay advisors to plan around. You get it built in. And one small habit worth copying: if they ever do need to take money out, they do it in December, not January. So the room comes back to them a few weeks later instead of a year later. A fourth move is about what not to do. A loss inside a TFSA is not tax deductible, so they don't use it as a casino for one speculative bet. If a stock you gambled on in there drops 80%, you don't just lose the money, you lose the contribution room with it. And you can't write the loss off the way you would in a regular account. So the TFSA holds diversified long-term growth. If they ever want to swing for the fences, they do it somewhere the taxman shares the downside. They also put money in earlier in the year, not later. A contribution in January gets a full extra year in the market over the same contribution made in December. Do that for decades and the head start alone is worth thousands. Stack it all together and the numbers get real. Someone who's had a TFSA since it started in 2009 has $109,000 of room. Fill it, grow it at 6%, and you've built a tax-free account that can quietly pay you an income later. None of it reported, none of it touching your benefits. So the takeaway isn't get rich, then use a TFSA properly. It's the other way around. Using it well is part of how people get rich. So here's the whole thing. Once you stop treating your TFSA like a checking account with a bonus, fill the room. Hold something that grows. Respect the calendar when you take the money out. That's all. A tax-free room is only worth as much as what you choose to grow inside it. Here's where to start today. 1. Log in and check whether your TFSA is just sitting in cash. 2. Find your real room. 3. Decide the money's job. Short-term goal or long-term growth. 4. If you ever withdraw from your TFSA, write down the date and wait for January before you put it back. Remember that one word we started with? Savings. Now you know the account was always about more than that. If you're trying to decide where your money should actually go first, the TFSA or the RRSP, I broke that down over here. I'll see you in that one. Thank you for watching.